It was supposed to be just another sunny afternoon at the city zoo. Families laughed, children pointed at the lions, and vendors sold popcorn near the monkey cages. But somewhere near the swamp exhibit, the air was thick with something else. Hate. A black woman, calm and graceful, stood near the enclosure, not knowing that behind the trees, a group of racist cops had already decided she didn't belong there. What happened next would shock everyone. They didn't pull out a gun this time. They didn't throw her to the ground. Instead, they opened a gate and released a hungry alligator in her direction. But here's what those cops didn't know. This woman wasn't just another visitor. Her millionaire daughter owned the very zoo they stood in, along with half the buildings in the city. And before this story was over, the hunters would become the hunted. Stay with me till the end, because what happens when truth collides with power will leave you speechless. And don't forget, subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be told, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Her name was Angela Brown, a 48-year-old single mother with kind eyes, full cheeks, and a quiet dignity that seemed to radiate from her even in silence. She wore a flowing yellow summer dress that swayed gently in the breeze, her natural hair tied neatly in a bun. Angela wasn't the type of person who demanded attention. She carried herself like someone who had spent her whole life being overlooked, dismissed, judged by the color of her skin. And maybe that was true. She had grown up in the projects, raised 3 kids on her own, worked 2 jobs for most of her life. She knew how the world looked at women like her. Like they didn't belong anywhere but on the sidelines. But Angela also had something else. Resilience. The kind that grows when life has tested you, mocked you, and still failed to break you. On that hot afternoon, she had only come to the zoo for one reason: peace. She loved animals. Always had. Something about watching them reminded her that life was more than struggle, more than survival. Little did she know she was about to be hunted. They weren't supposed to be there. 3 uniformed officers, off duty but still carrying their badges, lingering where families couldn't see. Sergeant Kane, Officer Mills, Officer Daniels. 3 men who had worked the force for years. Men with reputations not for heroism, but for harassment. Everyone in the black community knew their names. Kane especially, the ringleader. A broad-shouldered man with a jaw like stone and eyes cold as steel. They had spotted Angela earlier by the entrance. To them, she wasn't a woman enjoying the zoo. She wasn't a mother, a grandmother, a hard-working woman. No, to them, she was just a target. "Look at her," Kane muttered, chewing on a toothpick, walking around like she owns a place. The irony of his words would soon come back to haunt him. They followed her from a distance, waiting, whispering, laughing under their breath. And then they saw the swamp exhibit, the alligator pit. That's when Kane's lips curled into a cruel grin. "You boys ever seen fear up close?" he asked. Mills chuckled nervously. Daniels shifted uncomfortably, but neither stopped him. Moments later, they were near the side gate of the enclosure, a gate meant only for zookeepers, a gate that should have been locked. But Kane had a friend on the inside, someone who owed him favors. And today, that gate was already loose. Angela stopped by the railing, gazing at the murky water below. The sun glimmered on the surface. Somewhere under that dark green surface, a ripple moved. She smiled faintly. She had always admired alligators. Strong, silent, patient, but something in the air changed. The laughter of children in the distance seemed to fade. A chill ran down her spine, despite the heat. She glanced around. No families nearby. No zookeepers in sight. Just trees, shadows, silence, and then a sound, metal scraping against metal. She frowned, leaning forward slightly. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement, a gate slowly creaking open. At first, she thought maybe a zookeeper had arrived. But then she heard it, voices, male voices, snickering, whispering, and when she turned her head, she saw him. Kane, his uniform shirt untucked, his badge glinting in the light, his eyes locked on hers. There was no kindness there, no decency, just hate. Her stomach dropped. The gate swung wider, and out of the shadows, something moved. The alligator. Its long, scaly body slid across the dirt with terrifying grace, its jaws snapping lightly as if tasting the air. Its eyes, cold, yellow, ancient, fixed on the open space ahead. Angela's heart thundered in her chest. She stumbled back against the railing, her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs felt frozen. The men behind the gate laughed softly, like children who had set a cruel trap. "Dance now," Kane muttered under his breath. Far across town, in a skyscraper overlooking the city, Maya Brown, Angela's daughter, sat in a boardroom, 26 years old, a self-made millionaire. Sharp, ambitious, brilliant. She had built her empire from real estate and tech investments, expanding into hospitality. Then buying the zoo as both a business and a way to give back to the community. Maya was powerful, respected, feared in some circles. But to Angela, she was just her little girl, the one she had raised with love and discipline, the one who had promised to make her proud. Angela didn't tell Maya about her trip to the zoo that day. She didn't want to interrupt her daughter's busy life. She just wanted a quiet afternoon. If only she knew. The alligator inched closer. Its tail swished against the dirt. Its jaws opened slightly, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. Angela's breath came in shallow gasps. Her hands trembled as she gripped the railing behind her. "Why?" she whispered hoarsely. "Why are you doing this?" Kane stepped forward just enough so she could see his smirk. "Because people like you don't belong here." The words sliced through the air like a blade. For a split second, Angela's fear turned into something else. Anger. The same anger she had carried for years when denied jobs, when followed in stores, when pulled over for no reason. The anger of injustice, of being treated as less than human. Her fists clenched, her eyes narrowed, and in that moment, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just prey. The alligator lunged forward suddenly, its massive body covering the ground between them with terrifying speed. Angela stumbled to the side, her heart hammering so loud she could hear nothing else. Screams erupted in the distance, families noticing the chaos, parents pulling children away, staff shouting for help. But Kane and his men stayed rooted, watching amused, as if this were a show made for them. Angela's mind raced. She couldn't fight an alligator. She couldn't outrun it. But she also couldn't give Kane the satisfaction of seeing her beg. Her only chance was to think, to survive, to endure. She glanced around wildly, searching for anything, a stick, a rock, an escape. But all she saw was railing, dirt, water, and the beast now only feet away. Her chest heaved. Sweat trickled down her face. And then she noticed something, a zookeeper's tool, left carelessly near the fence. A metal pole with a hook on the end. It wasn't much, but it was something. Angela's body screamed at her to run, to collapse, to give up. But her soul told her something else. Fight, not just for herself, but for every woman who had ever been cornered. For every black person who had ever been told they didn't belong. For her daughter, who had built a future out of the pain of their past. She lunged to the pole, grabbing it with trembling hands. The alligator snapped its jaws just inches from her foot. Gasps echoed from the crowd, now gathering behind her. Kane's grin faded slightly. He hadn't expected this. Angela raised the pole, her arms shaking but her eyes blazing. The alligator hissed, circling, testing, and Angela whispered to herself, steadying her breath, "Not today." The alligator lunged again, its jaws wide, its body a blur of power. Angela thrust the pole forward with every ounce of strength she had, her scream piercing the air. The crowd shouted. Children cried. Zookeepers ran toward the scene. But at that exact moment, a familiar voice rang out across the chaos. "Mom!" Angela froze. Her daughter Maya was there, standing on the edge of the enclosure in her tailored suit, eyes wide with horror, staring at her mother as the beast closed in. And in that instant, the world seemed to stop. The alligator lunged. Angela's scream cut the air as she thrust the metal pole forward, her body trembling with effort. The beast hissed, recoiling for a second, its jaws snapping shut just inches from her leg. And then, "Mom!" Angela's head snapped toward the sound. Her daughter, Maya, standing at the edge of the chaos. The millionaire heiress in a crisp navy blue suit, her hair pulled back, her heels clicking against a stone path as she rushed forward. Her eyes, sharp, fierce, unblinking, locked on the nightmare unfolding before her. Time slowed. For a brief second, Angela forgot the danger and felt only one thing: relief. Her baby was here. But Maya's expression wasn't relief. It was fury. Step away from her. Maya's voice thundered across the enclosure. She wasn't screaming like a frightened daughter. She was commanding like a woman who owned the ground beneath her feet. Families scattered aside. Zookeepers froze mid-run, staring at her as if unsure whether to follow her orders or continue their scramble. And Kane frowned. His smirk faltered. The presence of this young black woman in heels, shouting with authority, unsettled him. But he quickly masked it with a scoff. "Who the hell are you?" he spat, stepping forward, puffing out his chest. Maya didn't answer. Not yet. She didn't waste breath on men like him. Instead, she vaulted over the railing in one swift movement, ignoring the horrified gasps from the crowd. Her suit tore slightly at the knee as she landed beside her mother, but she didn't care. "Mom, give me the pole," she said firmly, her voice steady. Angela hesitated. "Maya, now." Angela obeyed, her hands trembling as she passed the tool to her daughter. The alligator hissed again, circling, its tail swishing through the dirt. Its reptilian eyes narrowed at the new opponent. Maya didn't flinch. She raised the pole, her posture balanced, her breath controlled. Years of kickboxing, self-defense, and training flashed through her movements. She wasn't reckless. She was prepared. The crowd behind them held their breath. Some pulled out phones, recording. The image of a millionaire heiress standing between her mother and a raging predator would soon spread far beyond the zoo walls. But Maya didn't care about cameras. She cared about the trembling woman behind her. "Stay behind me, Mom," she whispered. From the shadows, Kane leaned against the fence, amused again. "Well, isn't this sweet?" he sneered. "Two of them. Twice the fun." Mills chuckled nervously. Daniels looked uneasy, glancing around at the gathering crowd. The last thing they wanted was too many witnesses. But Kane didn't care. He felt invincible. He had always gotten away with it. Every complaint, every accusation, swept under the rug. Why should the day be any different? He gestured at the alligator. "Let's see if money save you now, sweetheart." Maya Brown hadn't always been powerful. She grew up watching her mother struggle. working double shifts at diners, cleaning houses, scraping together pennies for rent. She remembered nights when the lights went out because the bill hadn't been paid, mornings when breakfast was nothing but stale bread and determination. But through it all, her mother never broke. Angela had taught her one thing above all. Never let them tell you what you're worth. You decide that. Maya carried those words like a sword. She studied harder than anyone else. Graduated top of her class. Launched her first app in college. Sold it for millions. Bought her first building at 22. By 26, she owned entire blocks of the city and the zoo they now stood in. To the outside world, Maya was a prodigy, a genius, a powerhouse. But to Angela, she was just a little girl, the girl she prayed over every night, the one she had raised with nothing but love and grit. And now, that little girl stood between her mother and death itself. The alligator lunged again. Maya pivoted, sidestepping with sharp precision, thrusting the pole against its snout. The metal clanged against teeth. The beast recoiled, hissing angrily. The crowd erupted in gasps. Someone screamed, "Call 911." Another shouted, "Get animal control." But Maya didn't break focus. She whispered under her breath, steady calm, "You're not touching her. Not today. Not ever." Behind her, Angela wept silently, torn between fear and awe. She had always known Maya was strong, but she had never seen her like this. Fierce, unyielding, unstoppable. Maya turned her head slightly, just enough to glare at Kane. "You think this is funny?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You think my mother's life is a joke?" Kane smirked. "Relax, princess. It's just nature. Can't blame an animal for being an animal." Maya's eyes blazed. "The only animals I see are standing outside that gate." The crowd gasped. Phones zoomed in. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that to the cops?" Mills shifted uncomfortably. Daniels muttered, "Kane, maybe we should—" "Shut up," Kane hissed. But in that moment, the balance of power had shifted. Kane didn't realize it yet, but everyone else did. At last, zookeepers arrived, rushing into the enclosure with long poles, nets, and tranquilizer equipment. "Stand back, ma'am," one of them shouted to Maya. "We'll handle this." Maya didn't move. She stood her ground until the lead keeper gestured urgently. Only then did she back away, guiding Angela with her. The zookeeper surrounded the alligator, working quickly to corner it back toward the water. The beast hissed and snapped, but it was no match for trained professionals with proper tools. Within minutes, the danger had passed. The gate was shut, the animal contained, but the real predators were still outside. As soon as the enclosure was secure, Angela's knees buckled. She collapsed against her daughter, sobbing into her shoulder. My baby," she whispered, clinging tightly. Maya held her, her jaw tight, her eyes burning with restrained rage. She stroked her mother's back gently, whispering, "You're safe now. I've got you. I promise they'll never touch you again." The crowd watched, some filming, some crying, others whispering. It was more than a near-death experience. It was a scene of resilience, love, and raw injustice played out in front of dozens of witnesses. And soon, the whole city would know. But Kane wasn't finished. He stepped forward, his smirk returning, though weaker this time. "What are you crying for? Nobody laid a hand on you. Just an accident. Gate must have been loose." Maya turned, slowly, deliberately, her eyes locked on his. And for the first time in his career, Sergeant Kane felt something he wasn't used to feeling. Fear, because in that gaze, he didn't just see a young woman. He saw power, authority, control, accident. Maya repeated softly. Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from the effort it took to keep her rage contained. "Yes," Kane said quickly. "Accident. You people always want to make something out of nothing. You people." The words hung in the air like poison. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Phones caught every second. Maya smiled coldly. "Funny thing about accidents," she said. "They tend to cost people their jobs, their freedom, their lives." Kane swallowed hard. Years ago, when Maya bought her first building, she had stood on the rooftop with her mother, staring at the skyline. "I'm going to own half this city one day," she had told Angela. Angela had laughed softly, stroking her cheek. "Baby, I don't care how much you own. I just want you safe. I just want you free." Maya had kissed her mother's hand and whispered, "One day, I'll make sure they never hurt you again." And now, that promise was alive in her eyes. Media vans pulled up outside the zoo gates. News reporters spilled in. Microphones, cameras, flashing lights. The story had already gone viral, shared from dozens of cell phones filming the incident. Maya knew this was bigger than just her mother. This was justice knocking at the door. She stepped forward, facing Kane directly. "You have no idea who you just tried to kill," she said, her voice low but deadly. Kane forced a laugh, but his face was pale. "Oh yeah? And who the hell are you supposed to be?" Maya leaned in, her lips curling into a slow, dangerous smile. "Let's just say you're staying in my zoo." The crowd erupted. Gasps, murmurs, whispers. Kane blinked, his smirk collapsing. What did you say?" he stammered. Maya didn't answer. Not yet. She let the silence hang heavy, let the weight of her words crush him slowly. Angela squeezed her daughter's hand, whispering, "Maya, don't." But it was too late. The world was watching. Maya straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and spoke clearly enough for every camera, every microphone, every trembling soul to hear. "My name is Maya Brown, and this zoo, along with half the buildings you walk past every single day, belongs to me." The crowd exploded in cheers and gasps. Reporters shouted questions. Zookeepers stared in shock. And Kane's face drained of all color. But before anyone could react further, sirens wailed in the distance. Police backup. And no one knew whether they were coming to protect justice or to protect Kane. The sirens wailed louder, growing closer, echoing through the zoo's stone pathways. Red and blue lights flashed against the iron gates. Families pressed against fences, children clutching their parents' arms, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Inside the enclosure, silence had fallen, except for the low hiss of the alligator now trapped behind bars, and the clicking of cameras capturing every moment. Maya stood tall, her arm wrapped protectively around her mother. Her navy suit was dusty, her knee ripped, but her presence radiated something the uniformed men lacked: authority, command, power. And Kane felt it. For the first time in his career, he wasn't the one everyone looked at for answers. He was the one everyone looked at for blame. The backup squad pulled up fast. 3 more police cruisers, doors slamming, boots pounding on concrete. 6 officers stormed toward the scene, hands on their holsters, eyes darting. "What's going on here?" the captain barked, his gaze scanning the chaos. "Who's in charge?" Kane straightened immediately, relief washing over his face. He puffed out his chest, plastered on a false calm. "I am," he announced loudly, "Sergeant Kane. Situation's under control. Just an accident with the enclosure." But before the words could settle, a voice rang out from the crowd. Liar. It came from a middle-aged man holding his daughter's hand. His voice shook, but his eyes burned with conviction. "I saw what you did. You opened that gate. You tried to kill that woman." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras swiveled. Phones zoomed in. Kane's jaw tightened. One by one, voices rose. I recorded it. I saw everything. He laughed when the alligator came out. They targeted her because she's black. The crowd became a wave, angry, rising, undeniable. The captain's face hardened as he turned back to Kane. Is this true? Kane's confidence wavered, but only for a moment. He sneered. People misinterpret things. Everyone's emotional. You know how it is when crowds get riled up. But the truth was already escaping his grasp. Maya stepped forward, her voice slicing through the noise. No, Captain, this was an accident. This was attempted murder. The cameras zoomed in on her now. Reporters leaned forward, microphones trembling in their hands. My name is Maya Brown, she continued, her voice strong, resonant, clear. This woman, she gestured her trembling mother, is Angela Brown, my mother, a hard-working woman who came here for peace. And this man, she pointed directly at Kane, her finger steady as stone, decided her life didn't matter. The crowd erupted in cheers, shouts, applause. Some cried out, "Justice for Angela." Others chanted, "Shame, shame." Angela clung to her daughter's arm, her tears streaking her cheeks, but in her eyes burned a pride she hadn't felt in years. Kane, however, forced a laugh. She's exaggerating. She's making this political. You know how people like her are, always playing victim. People like her. The words dropped heavy. Reporters scribbled furiously. Phones captured every syllable. Maya's smile was slow, cold, deliberate. Funny thing about people like me, she said, we own the ground you're standing on. For years, Kane had walked the streets untouchable. He was the kind of cop who learned early that the badge wasn't a shield. It was a weapon. He pulled people over without cause, searched homes without warrants, bent the truth in court until it snapped. Complaints piled up, but somehow they always vanished. His victims were mostly poor, mostly black, and their voices never carried beyond the walls of precincts that protected their own. But today was different. Today, the world was watching. The chants grew louder. Justice for Angela. Lock him up. Enough is enough. Reporters pressed closer. Microphones thrust forward. Miss Brown, do you intend to press charges? Will you sue the department? Is this a racial hate crime? Maya lifted her chin. This isn't just about my mother. This is about every person who's ever been silenced. Every life that's ever been endangered because someone in uniform thought their badge made them God. Yes, I intend to press charges. And no amount of lies will erase what these witnesses saw. The crowd roared approval. Kane's face flushed red. Sweat trickled down his neck. For the first time, the smirk was gone completely. Angela's hand shook as she stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. I've lived in this city my whole life, she said. I've scrubbed floors. I've waited tables. I've paid taxes. And I've taught my children to respect the law. Her eyes burned as they locked on Kane. But respect has to be earned. And today, you showed me there's nothing to respect. The crowd clapped. Some even wept. A mother hugging her child whispered, that could have been us. Kane shifted, glaring at Angela with venom. But Angela didn't flinch. Not anymore. The captain looked torn, eyes flicking between Kane, Maya, and the roaring crowd. Sergeant, if this is true... Kane cut him off, his voice sharp, panicked. It's not true. They're twisting this. He jabbed a finger at Maya. She's just some spoiled brat making up stories. Maya laughed, a short, cutting laugh that sliced through the tension. Some spoiled brat, she repeated. Then she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming like fire. Tell me, Sergeant, when was the last time a spoiled brat signed your paycheck? The crowd gasped. The captain's eyebrows shot up. Kane blinked, confused. What the hell are you talking about? Maya tilted her head, savoring the moment. This zoo belongs to me, and so do 3 precinct buildings and 4 housing blocks your officers patrol every night. You walk through my doors. You park in my garages. And you dare to tell me I don't belong here? The roar of the crowd shook the air. Maya hadn't bought properties for luxury. She had bought them for leverage. Every building she owned had once been a symbol of oppression, a landlord that mistreated tenants, a corporation that displaced families, a system that thrived on keeping the powerless small. She bought them, transformed them, turned them into spaces of safety, community, and justice. But deep inside, she always knew one day she'd need that power. One day, someone would cross a line so vile, so unforgivable, that her wealth would no longer just be about profit. It would be about survival. Today, that day had arrived. The captain shifted uncomfortably, clearly rattled. Miss Brown, if what you're saying is true, there will be an investigation. No, Maya snapped, her voice cutting like steel. Not an investigation. An arrest. Now. The crowd roared approval. Arrest him. Arrest him. Kane's face twisted in rage. You don't tell me what to do, he barked, his hand twitching near his holster. The crowd gasped. A ripple of fear spread. Mothers pulled children closer. Reporters shouted. Maya didn't move, didn't blink. She stepped closer until she was eye to eye with him. Go ahead, she whispered coldly. Pull it. On live TV, in front of hundreds of witnesses, in front of the city you thought you owned. Kane froze. His hand trembled. Sweat poured down his forehead. He had never been cornered like this, and he hated it. But then, something shifted. 2 of the backup officers stepped forward, not toward Kane, not toward Maya, but in the middle. Their hands rested near their belts, eyes sharp. They weren't there for justice. They weren't there for truth. They were Kane's allies. And the way they looked at Maya was dangerous. Angela gasped softly, clutching her daughter's arm. Maya narrowed her eyes, sensing the shift. The crowd still roared, but beneath the noise was tension, sharp and electric. The question hung heavy in the air. Would the system protect itself again, or would it finally break? The captain barked, "Stand down," but the 2 officers didn't move. Their hands twitched near their weapons, their bodies tense. Kane's lips curled into a slow, cruel smile. The balance seemed to tilt again. And then one reporter shouted above the noise, "City Council is watching this live. The mayor just tweeted. They're demanding answers." Every head turned toward the cameras. Every phone buzzed with breaking news alerts. And Maya's lips curved into a smile of her own. Because this battle was no longer inside the zoo. It had just become a war for the entire city. The zoo was no longer just a zoo. It had become a stage, a battleground, a headline. News alerts buzzed across phones. Television anchors interrupted broadcasts. Breaking news: racist cop allegedly releases alligator on black woman at zoo. The mayor's tweet lit up the airwaves. This is unacceptable. Full accountability must follow. Justice must prevail. And in that moment, the weight of the city pressed down. Not on Angela, not on Maya, not on the crowd, but on Kane. The captain's jaw tightened. The chants grew deafening. Cameras zoomed in. "Kane," he said slowly, "hand me your badge." The world seemed to stop. Kane's smirk faltered. "What?" "Hand me your badge. Now." Mills gasped. Daniels looked away, ashamed. The 2 allies shifted uncomfortably, but the weight of the cameras kept them frozen. Kane's face turned crimson. "This is a damn witch hunt." You're just bowing to the mob. But the captain didn't flinch. Badge. Gun. Now. For the first time in his career, Kane's weapon felt heavy. Not powerful. Heavy. Like an anchor dragging him down. Slowly, trembling with rage, he slammed both into the captain's hand, and the crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, tears. Angela clutched her daughter's hand, whispering through sobs, "We did it. We really did it." But Maya's expression was steady, cold. She knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Years ago, Maya had sat with her mother in their tiny apartment, watching a courtroom drama on TV. "Baby," Angela had said softly, "the courtroom is where truth fights lies. But lies usually have more money." Maya had frowned. "Then I'll get more money than all the lies in the world." Angela had laughed, kissing her daughter's forehead. "One day, you'll do more than that. You'll be the truth." Those words echoed now, as Maya stared at Kane being led away in cuffs. She wasn't finished until the truth was carved into history. 3 months later, the courthouse overflowed. Protesters chanted outside. News vans circled. Inside, every seat was filled. Families, activists, reporters, lawyers, officials. The case had become national news. Zoo Justice Trial. It wasn't just about Angela. It was about decades of abuse, of corruption, of systemic rot hiding in plain sight. Kane sat at the defense table, his suit wrinkled, his eyes sunken, but his arrogance still clung to him like a foul odor. His lawyer, a slick man in a gray suit, leaned close, whispering, "We'll spin this. Say the gate was faulty. Say you tried to help. Play the hero." Kane nodded, though his jaw clenched. He wasn't used to playing defense. Across the room, Maya and Angela sat side by side. Angela wore a simple navy dress. Maya wore power like armor, her tailored suit crisp, her chin lifted, her eyes unblinking. This wasn't just their fight. It was a fight of every name erased from police reports, every life lost in silence. The prosecutor rose first, a sharp woman with fire in her eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about abuse of power. It's about a man who thought his badge gave him the right to decide who lives and who dies. It's about a mother who was targeted simply because of the color of her skin. And it's about justice that has been denied for too long." The crowd murmured approval. Then the defense lawyer rose, his tone smooth. This was a tragic accident. The zoo gate malfunctioned. The officers on duty were simply trying to contain the chaos. My client, Sergeant Kane, did what any of us would do in that situation. He tried to protect the public. Kane nodded smugly, glancing at the jury, his smirk creeping back. But Maya's lips curled into the faintest smile. He didn't realize yet his lies had already been crushed. The prosecutor wasted no time. First came the videos, dozens of them, from phones, from security cameras, from live streams. The jury watched Kane laughing as the gate opened, watched him sneer. "People like you don't belong here." Watched him smirk while Angela trembled before the alligator. Gasps filled the courtroom. Jurors shifted uncomfortably. Reporters scribbled furiously. The defense lawyer paled. Kane's smirk cracked. Then came the witnesses. The father who shouted liar that day. The mother who filmed everything on her phone. The zookeepers who swore the gate had been locked earlier that morning. Every voice piled weight onto Kane's shoulders, until even his allies in uniform refused to meet his eye. When Angela took the stand, the room fell silent. She gripped the railing, her hands trembling, but her voice steady. "I came to the zoo that day because I wanted peace, but instead I was hunted, not by the animal in the enclosure, but by the men who were supposed to protect me." Tears streamed down faces in the gallery. Even the jury shifted uncomfortably, their eyes glistening. Angela paused, looking directly at Kane. You looked me in the eye and told me I didn't belong. But I've worked every day of my life to belong. And I realized that day, it was never about me belonging. It was about you being afraid of people like me. Afraid of us standing tall. Afraid of us refusing to bow. Her voice cracked, but her spirit didn't. And thanks to my daughter, I didn't bow. I will never bow again. The courtroom erupted in applause until the judge banged his gavel for silence. When Maya took the stand, she didn't just testify, she commanded. She laid out her story, her ownership of the zoo, the buildings, the precincts. She revealed documents, property records, proof of her influence. You thought you were hunting prey, she said, staring directly at Kane. But you stepped into my territory. My mother's life is not disposable. No one's life is disposable. And today, you will answer for it. Her voice didn't waver. Not once. The jury hung on every word. The cameras captured every second. Finally, Kane himself was called to stand. His lawyer whispered, "Stay calm. Deny. Deny." But Kane couldn't stay calm. Not anymore. He ranted. He raved. He shouted about witch hunting, fake news, and respect for authority. The prosecutor asked simply, "Did you or did you not open that gate?" Kane's face twisted. I was making sure it was secure." The prosecutor slammed the remote. The video replayed. Kane's hand on the gate. His grin. His words danced now. The courtroom gasped. Kane's voice broke. It was a joke. Just a damn joke. But no one was laughing. Not the jury. Not the judge. Not the millions watching at home. Hours later, the jury returned. The room held its breath. On the charge of attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of abuse of power, guilty. On the charge of hate crime, guilty. Kane's knees buckled. His smirk dissolved forever. Angela clutched Maya's hand, tears streaming down her face. Maya squeezed back, her own eyes wet but burning with triumph. The crowd erupted in cheers, chants, applause. Justice had finally cracked through the stone. Weeks later, murals of Angela and Maya appeared across the city. Strength, resilience, justice. Kane was sentenced to decades in prison. His allies scattered, their careers in ruins. Investigations widened, exposing more corruption. But for Angela, the victory wasn't about revenge. It was about survival, about knowing her daughter had turned pain into power. As the cameras captured Angela and Maya walking out of the courthouse, the sun bathed them in gold. Reporters shouted questions, but Maya stopped, turning to face the world. "Let this be clear," she said, her voice carrying across the steps. "Hate will not win. Power will not silence us. And no one will ever make us bow again." Angela slipped her arm through her daughter's, whispering softly, "You kept your promise, baby." Maya smiled, her eyes glistening. "No, Mom, we kept it." The crowd roared. The cameras flashed. And the city finally began to heal.